Hello guys, welcome back to Basketball Fan. It looks like the Indiana Fever are definitely paying attention to all the noise that's been circulating lately. Over the past few weeks, a growing narrative has taken over social media suggesting that Stephanie White might be on the hot seat. Critics, commentators, and even some Fever-focused content creators have been fueling speculation that her job security could be in serious question. But after what we saw today, that conversation might need to slow down because the Fever just dropped a post that feels like a very intentional message. And honestly, it doesn't come across as a franchise preparing to move on from their head coach anytime soon. In fact, it feels like the complete opposite. If you followed Stephanie White's journey for a while, then you already know this isn't the first time she's had to deal with outside pressure. Throughout her career, she's built a reputation for staying composed in moments like this. Whether it's during press conferences or interviews, she tends to remain calm, measured, and focused on the bigger picture rather than getting caught up in daily criticism or online narratives. That's been her style, and it's something that's helped her navigate tough stretches before. However, what happened today felt a little different, and you have to give credit to the Indiana Fever's social media team because they clearly understood the timing and the message they wanted to send. The post almost felt strategic, like they were fully aware of the speculation and decided to respond in a subtle but powerful way. So when you take a closer look at their activity on X, it becomes even more interesting. The Fever released a series of posts, and one of them immediately stood out. It read, "Get to know head coach Stephanie White in celebration of Women's History Month." Now, on the surface, that might seem like a standard promotional or celebratory post. But when you consider everything that's been said recently about her future, the wording starts to carry a bit more weight. The emphasis on head coach Stephanie White feels deliberate, almost like the organization is reinforcing her position rather than distancing themselves from it. The post didn't stop there either. It went on to highlight her career, listing various achievements and milestones that helped shape her basketball journey. And while it's fair to say that Stephanie White wasn't necessarily viewed as a superstar during her playing days, she still had a solid and respectable career with notable accomplishments. One example mentioned was her recognition as the 1995 Gatorade Player of the Year, which was a significant achievement at the time and speaks to the level of talent and promise she had early on. When you put all of this together, the timing, the tone, and the content of the post, it really starts to feel like more than just a simple feature. It feels like a statement. A reminder of who Stephanie White is, what she's accomplished, and most importantly, where she stands with the organization right now. And for fans who have been closely following the situation, it sends a pretty clear message. The Indiana Fever aren't backing away from their head coach. They're standing behind her. She also earned recognition as the USA Today Player of the Year, which further highlights the level of talent she had during her playing days. But at the same time, it's important to understand the context of that era. The level of competition back then simply wasn't the same as what we're seeing today. When you look at the modern WNBA or even the current state of college basketball, the game has evolved in a major way. The athletes coming into the league now are bigger, faster, more skilled, and operating at a completely different level. We're seeing scoring records being broken and new standards being set almost every season. So none of this is meant to take anything away from Stephanie White or her accomplishments. It's simply acknowledging how much the game has grown over time. That said, her resume still includes some truly significant moments. One of the biggest highlights was winning a national championship with Purdue Boilermakers women's basketball back in 1999, which remains a legendary achievement in women's college basketball. However, it's also true that many of her major individual accolades came earlier in her career, particularly around 1995, which, as some have pointed out, was nearly 3 decades ago. That time gap naturally adds to the conversation when people evaluate her career in today's context. One thing that really stood out from the Indiana Fever's recent post was a photo featuring Aaliyah Boston alongside Stephanie White. The image felt intentional, almost like it was sending a deeper message about leadership and mentorship. It wasn't just about highlighting past accomplishments, it was about showing the present impact. The focus seemed to be on how White is pouring into her players, inspiring them, creating opportunities, and helping build confidence and belief within the team. That idea was reinforced by her own words, where she described that aspect of coaching as one of the most gratifying parts of what she gets to do every single day. Looking at her coaching journey, it's clear she's put in the work across multiple levels of the game. She started as an assistant at Ball State, then moved on to Kansas State Wildcats women's basketball, followed by Toledo Rockets women's basketball. From there, she transitioned into the WNBA as an assistant with the Chicago Sky, and later joined the Indiana Fever as an assistant before becoming their head coach. She also had a stint leading the Connecticut Sun, and now she's back with the Fever once again as head coach. Along the way, she's built an impressive list of achievements, including being part of a WNBA championship-winning team, earning WNBA Coach of the Year honors, coaching in the All-Star Game, and winning the Commissioner's Cup. But here's the part of the story that a lot of people aren't really talking about: her time at Vanderbilt Commodores women's basketball. When you look at the post the Indiana Fever shared, they highlighted a lot of her accomplishments, but that Vanderbilt chapter is noticeably absent. And honestly, that's the stretch of her career that has some fans raising questions. Back in 2016, she was hired as the head coach of Vanderbilt's women's basketball program, which is a significant role at a major college institution. If you're going to evaluate her full career timeline, that's an important piece of the puzzle. During her time there, the results were challenging. She finished with an overall record of 46-83, and in SEC play, it was even tougher, going just 13-54. The program didn't make a single NCAA tournament appearance during those 5 seasons, and the team struggled to stay competitive in one of the toughest conferences in college basketball. To be fair, she did take over a rebuilding situation, which always comes with its own set of difficulties. But there were multiple losing seasons, including one year where the team won just 7 games, which is tough for a program with that level of expectations. The 2021 season didn't help either, as it was heavily impacted by COVID disruptions and injuries, making an already difficult situation even harder. Still, after 5 seasons, Vanderbilt ultimately decided to go in a different direction. In 2021, the university announced they were parting ways with Stephanie White, stating that the program needed a change. And that decision marked a turning point in her career, but that's where the story really starts to take an interesting turn. She eventually made her return to the WNBA, and that's where things really started to turn around for Stephanie White. After a difficult run at Vanderbilt Commodores women's basketball, she rebuilt her reputation with the Connecticut Sun, proving that she could still coach at a high level. That comeback was solidified when she won WNBA Coach of the Year in 2023, and now she finds herself back where it all connects again, leading the Indiana Fever. So the reality is pretty simple. Vanderbilt didn't work out the way people hoped, but in the WNBA, she clearly found her rhythm again and re-established herself as a respected coach. Now, moving forward, one thing that really stood out from that Indiana Fever post was the message she shared about mentorship and leadership. She talked about how fortunate she's been to learn from some of the best coaches and leaders in the game, and how meaningful it is for her to pass those lessons down to assistant coaches, players, and the next generation of leaders in women's basketball. That perspective gives you a deeper understanding of how she views her role, not just as someone calling plays, but as someone shaping the growth and mindset of the people around her. But once that post went live, the fan reactions came in fast, and they were intense. The comment section quickly filled up with strong opinions, comparisons, and criticism. Some fans even brought up a historical comparison involving Magic Johnson and Paul Westhead during their time with the Los Angeles Lakers. In that situation, Magic famously clashed with Westhead over the team's offensive style, which ultimately led to the coach being fired. Fans are now trying to draw parallels, suggesting that Caitlin Clark could face a similar situation if the system doesn't fit her style of play. A lot of the criticism centers around offensive philosophy. Some fans believe Stephanie White leans too heavily toward a slower, more methodical system, which they feel doesn't maximize Caitlin Clark's strengths as a fast-paced, high-usage playmaker. There are repeated calls for adjustments, fans asking whether she's willing to implement a more read-and-react offense or allow Clark to have more control on the ball. Others argue that while White may be a strong defensive-minded coach, the team also needs a more dynamic offensive approach to fully unlock their roster's potential. There were also comments questioning her past, especially her time at Vanderbilt, with some fans pointing to the struggles there as a reason for concern about player development. Others took a more measured approach, saying they respect her knowledge of the game, especially from her time as a broadcaster, but are waiting to see if her coaching style can adapt to fit the current roster. And then, of course, there were more emotional and over-the-top reactions, which is pretty typical whenever a topic like this starts trending online. At the end of the day, this kind of reaction isn't surprising. The Indiana Fever knew exactly what they were doing when they posted that feature. It felt intentional, almost like they anticipated the response and were ready for the conversation that would follow. Fans can see through it, and the message came across loud and clear. Stephanie White is here, and for now, she's not going anywhere. Of course, everyone is going to have their own opinion on that. Some fans are fully behind her, others still have serious concerns, and a lot of those concerns continue to circle back to parts of her coaching history that weren't highlighted in the post. But that's where things stand right now, and it's a conversation that's only going to keep growing as the season unfolds. Anyway, that's going to do it for today's discussion here on Basketball Fan. Let me know what you think about everything going on with Stephanie White and the Indiana Fever, and whether you believe she's the right coach to lead this team moving forward. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any updates, and I'll catch you in the next one.